Hi, my name is Thomas Gibbs with usfranchisevisa.com, and in this video we'll discuss investor visas with Harvard Law School graduate executive managing attorney Ian E. Scott. Ian has his CPA designation, MBA, was previously an investment banker, wrote the book Law School Lowdown, published by Simon & Schuster. He's a Canadian here on an E-2 visa, so he can certainly speak about it from personal experience too, and has founded the firm on an E-2 visa. He also has held numerous visas, the TN, the H-1B, the F-1, the E-2, and the B-2. So therefore, it's pretty fair to say that Ian's an expert in the field of investor visas. Ian, thank you for being on the call today.
No, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us, how'd you get started in law?
So my path to law was an unusual one because I was an investment banker. As you mentioned, I'm a CPA and I have an MBA as well, and I went into investment banking. So I had a long career, over 10 years, working in an investment bank before I ever decided to go to law school. But I always had this nagging, this nagging sensation or feeling that I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a child. So I had a career, I was doing well, I really sat down and said, well, what is it I really want to do? Then I went to, started applying to law schools and got accepted. And when I was in, the first year of law school, it really was this feeling of I was put on this planet to be a lawyer. So it was so it definitely worked out well.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, it's interesting how one thing in life leads to another.
Exactly. And it definitely was, a lot of people thought I was crazy for leaving my investment banking job, but following your passion is always something that will pay off in the end. So.
Yes, absolutely. So once you got into law, how did you decide, or what came about that moved you into immigration and investor visas?
Sure. So when I was in law school, I was on a visa. So I was on the student F1 visa. So in order to stay in the country, when you graduate, you need a job. You have to find one. So there were lots of jobs that were available. But they were really closer to my background, the corporate background that I had as an investment banker. So I ended up going to a very large law firm. And while I liked the time there, I knew that it really wasn't for me. I wanted to do something a little bit more, where I was dealing with people a little bit more, because when two corporations are suing each other or you're doing corporate work, your head is in books most of the time. So while I was there, I was looking at, well, which visas are available to me? Because I wasn't an immigration lawyer at the time. I was a new lawyer, and I said, which visas are available to me? And so I was looking, and I came across this E-2 visa and started researching it, and filed my own application, and it was successful. So I think that's what. And it was because the visa was based on starting a law firm, and I'd done all the research. I thought, well, what a great niche to be able to offer these services. So that's really how it all came about.
Awesome. Well, that's great, especially that you already had experience having a visa too.
Exactly.
That just makes it even that much more better.
Definitely.
So tell us from a high level, what is an E-2 visa?
Sure. So an E-2 visa is a visa that's available for someone who wants to either start a business in the U.S. or purchase a business in the U.S. And the one kind of key thing about the E-2, though, is that the E-2 is only available to people from certain countries. So there are about 80 countries. There are countries that have a treaty with the United States. There are about 80 countries where this visa is available. So Canada is a country, UK is a country, Pakistan is a country, France is a country. So many countries across all the continents that are on the list. So the key is that you invest money. So the investment can be anywhere from $60,000 to a much larger investment. And also the other key is that the business is going to ultimately be able to sustain U.S. workers. So those are kind of the two key things with respect to that visa.
Okay, so you talked about workers and capital. Are there firm numbers in place?
Yeah, so they're not. For this visa, there aren't firm numbers in place. So I think that if if you're filing an application and your investment is over 100,000, I think that you're on the safe side at most consulates. There may still be a few consulates that think that $100,000 investment is on the low side, because what happens with this visa, there's sometimes it's not consistent in terms of how it's adjudicated. So the investment amount is going to vary by the type of business. It's going to vary, where you're applying. So there isn't a real set amount, but I'd say that generally speaking, people who invest over 100,000 are on the safe side. But we have done E-2 visas where the investment was much lower, like 50,000, 60,000. In fact, the firm was founded on an E-2 visa with a very small investment amount.
Okay. And then do we have to create a certain amount of jobs within E-2?
Yeah, so the E-2 does require that you create jobs. So when you first start, like let's say you're starting a business and you're applying for the E-2 visa, you don't have to have employees on day one. So when you put together a business plan, and then you will show that the business is going to generate employment, and really employment can start in year 2, sometimes even year 3. And really what you want to do is over a 5-year period, you want to bring the employee level up to at least 3, and that's excluding the owner. So it's not a visa where you need 10, 15, or that the business has to grow. We have some E-2s that are pool cleaning businesses that have 3 employees that will never have more than 3 employees, and that's sufficient to continue, for the business to be renewed indefinitely. So.
Okay, that's really valuable to know. So we can start with just us, as long as we can show that there's a ramp up or a progression of employee count. There's a good chance that we could be considered viable.
Exactly. And a lot of the time what we do to support the numbers with respect to hiring employees, in addition to the business plan, is get the applicants to get letters of intent or contracts to show anything that they can get to show that the business is going to be viable and that people are interested in the business. So we'll include those in the application as well, and those are very helpful.
Wonderful. Okay, so can an E-2 lead to a green card?
Yeah, so this is a question we get all the time from our clients, and the answer is no. So the way that and even further, that there aren't any visas that lead to any non-immigrant visas, which an E-2 falls into the category. Anything that's not a green card is a non-immigrant visa. And there aren't any non-immigrant visas that lead to a green card. Instead, the way the system works in the US is that if there is green cards are based on categories. So if you are eligible, you can apply. So if you marry a US citizen, you could apply for a green card. If you, one of the ones that some people do from E-2 is if you invest we're going to talk a little bit about EB-5, but if you invest $500,000 and create 10 full-time jobs, you may be able to go from an E-2 to an EB-5. It has nothing to do with the E-2. It just means that you may be eligible to apply for the EB-5. If you have extraordinary ability, that's another green card category. You might be able to apply for it. So the E-2 doesn't lead to a green card at all, but if you are eligible for a green card under one of the many categories that exist, then you could certainly apply for it while you're on an E-2.
Okay, great. And you started talking a little bit about the EB-5. What are the major differences between the E-2 and the EB-5?
Sure. So the E-2 and the EB-5. So the major difference, one major difference is that the EB-5 is not country dependent. So you can apply from really any country. The other big difference is that the EB-5 does have a set investment amount. So it's either $500,000 or $1 million, depending on where the business is. So if it's in an area that has high unemployment, then it could be $500,000. If not, it's going to be $1 million. The other is that the EB-5 also has set numbers on how many people you have to hire. So the business that you invest in has to create 10 full-time jobs. So those are really the big differences. There are others, but those are really the big differences between an E-2 and an EB-5. And maybe one other significant difference is the EB-5 takes a lot longer to get. So it's if you applied now for an EB-5, it would probably be a couple of years before you got the green card, and you're not afforded any benefit to stay in the country or do anything while during that pendency. So the E-2, you could if someone applied today, they presumably could have the E-2 in a couple of months. But the EB-5 would take closer to a couple of years before the person got the green card.
Wow. Okay. So is any of that having to do with this current administration? This is being shot in spring of 2019. So we're under the Trump administration. How is that affecting everything?
Yeah, well, I would say I'd say that this administration has significantly impacted visas and visa processing in general. So whether it's more difficult adjudications, longer to adjudicate petitions. So definitely, I'd say that significant impact generally on visas. On the E2 though, and perhaps even the EB5, I would say not so much. I would say that we definitely, I'd say, do more when we put together an application. Like we push for higher investment amounts. We push to show, things like the letters of intent or contracts to show employment. But we haven't seen, we process hundreds of E2 applications. We haven't seen an increase in denials or people having difficulty getting E2 visas. And then with EB5, it's a very objective standard, right? If you invest the 500,000 and you create 10 full-time jobs, it's a very objective standard. There's no subjectivity there. So there as well, we haven't really seen a difference, I would say. So I'd say that overall, big impact, but I'd say for E2s and EB5 visas, we haven't really seen a significant impact.
Okay, well, that's good to know. You mentioned denial. What would you say is maybe the most common and second most common things, assuming that we meet the preliminary qualifications, we're from a treaty country, things like that.
Yeah.
What are the big ones?
Sure. So I think that the biggest reason for denial, I would say, is that the consular officer doesn't believe that the business is going to be able to create U.S. jobs. And that manifests itself in a number of ways. But that's really the crux of, I'd say, the biggest reason. So there was a denial that we saw once where the applicant had a business in the UK that they had been running for 10 years. And the consular officer wasn't the consular officer really said that, well, you've had this business in the UK for 10 years and you haven't hired anybody. What makes you think that the same business that you're going to open up in the US is going to be able to sustain US employment? And they weren't satisfied and they didn't grant the visa. And that's a very difficult reason to overcome. I'd say the second biggest reason for denials might just be investment amount. So and which that is fairly easy to overcome as long as you have the money to invest. And actually, I will say one other reason for denial is poor visa preparation. So we have taken over a number of cases where individuals have either applied on their own or even used other attorneys who, quite frankly, just like whether it's the person or the other attorneys, they don't know the rules because E2 is a more complicated visa. And, they often what we will do is if people come to us and say, well, we've been denied. We had one gentleman, he was denied 4 times. And he came to us 3 times on his own, 1 time with a lawyer. And he came to us and I said, well, okay, we'll take a look at the file first before we see if we want to take the case because we don't, 4 times sounds to me like maybe it's just not an approvable case. But then we looked at the case and we were really surprised at how it was prepared. And we really did think that we would be able to get this approved. And we, in fact, did take the case and got the visa approved. So it's, I'd say that maybe reverse the order. The probably number one reason of denial is just poor preparation of the application, and then the other 2 reasons fall under that.
Yeah. Okay. You make a good point there. At U.S. Franchise Visa, we've networked with dozens of immigration attorneys, but they are not investor visa attorneys. Yeah. There's a big difference. Mm-hmm. If you do a Google search, you can probably find a dozen different immigration attorneys very easily, but making sure that you find an attorney like Mr. Scott that has the experience with E2s is critical. So thank you for bringing that up.
No.
Talk to us maybe a little bit about franchising, your experience there, what your thoughts are on the likelihood of it getting approved. Maybe if you have a story about a client done a franchise on the visa.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I do have a story. And so we have an article on our website that talks about kind of which categories are easy. Is it easy to start a business? Is it easy to franchise, to purchase a business? And we kind of lump two into a similar categorization: franchises and purchasing businesses. So franchises are an excellent way to get an E-2 visa, and there are a few reasons for it. So the one is that most franchises, you can see from the business plan or the idea, or the companies already exist somewhere, that they are going to create employment, right? So that's kind of the one reason. The second is that most franchises have a franchise fee, so that's part of the investment, and that's really what it costs to get the business up and running. So it's kind of this objective. These people who kind of know what they're doing, who have sold the concept to many other people, say this is what it costs to get the business up and running, and that's what you've paid to do it. And the third is just, quite frankly, the consulate's comfortable that you have business support, because franchises, kind of provide that to you. They provide training and things like that. So they're definitely an excellent way to get a franchise. So getting E-2 visa. So the one story I have is this gentleman, and he was already in the U.S. and he was on an H-1B visa. Now he was doing and I can say the name of the company, it doesn't matter. It's Firehouse Subs. So it's a franchise Firehouse, not Subway, but Firehouse Subs. So they make the submarine sandwiches, but it's a franchise Firehouse Subs. So they actually happen to be buying an existing franchise, right? So rather than starting one. So the gentleman was very worried about because he was doing it under his wife's name. He was very worried about his wife's ability to go to the interview and kind of get through the interview successfully. So he wanted to do a filing in the U.S., which is USCIS, that you don't have to do any interview. But I talked him into, and people, whatever you want to do. But I was able to successfully talk him into, because I was so sure that this visa would get approved, that there was no issue with this visa, that I was able to, and there's much significant benefits from getting the visa at the consulate rather than doing it through USCIS. So I was able to talk him into doing that, and his wife went to the interview and was able to successfully get the visa. So with most businesses, like if it was a startup, or even if you're purchasing a business, because sometimes when you're purchasing a business, depending on what the financials say and things like that, I may not have been as quick to counsel him on that. But in this case, the benefits of a franchise, I think, significantly made it so that I was not worried at all that she would go, even if whether she had a kind of bad interview or not. I just didn't think that she would have, there would have been enough there to sink the case, because of the significant weight behind the business and the franchise. So.
Wonderful. Was that franchise already profitable when they were buying it?
It was. Yeah, it was. That one was. Yes, that one was.
Okay, perfect. Maybe a slight shift from the visa specifically, but if we come here on an E-2, how do we get things like buy a home or health insurance or establishing something like a social security number? Are some of these possible or impossible?
Yeah, they're all possible. So I'm here on an E-2 visa. Now I own a home. I have a social security number. I have health insurance. So they're all possible. Like with it, especially, I'd say when you start a business, health insurance now wasn't always the case, but health insurance is available to everybody, right? Like in the sense of whether you buy it on exchange or you do it through your company as the business owner. So that's something that is straightforward. Like, you get a broker, a health insurance broker. Social security number, very simple. You go to the Social Security office. Setting up bank accounts, very, very simple. Mortgages and buying a home, very similar to what you'd see in your own country, like, where the people are coming from, generally what you'd see. I'd say that the one kind of, like, if someone does need a mortgage, the kind of one thing, U.S. doesn't often look at credit in other places. So they're probably going to want you to have income in the United States for a couple of years before they're going to extend a mortgage to you. But generally speaking, adapting and finding the services that an American citizen or green card holder would have are fairly straightforward. Okay,
great. Well, Ian, we really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about your experiences and your knowledge in this category of investor visas. Tell us a little bit about how we can get in touch with you, schedule a consultation, your website.
Absolutely, yeah. So the website is legalservices with an S, incorporated.com. and you can schedule a consultation directly on the website. So the top right-hand corner of the website, there's a button that says schedule a consultation. You can click on that and you can pick the lawyer you'd like to speak to. You can pick the day and time that's convenient to you. We schedule the consultations in half-an-hour slots or 1-hour slots. You can pick whether you want to do phone, Skype, in person. So all of that's available on the website. We also have a very extensive blog on the website. The majority of people who contact us, they're doing Google searches and they find our information on the website. So you know, a lot of the questions that people have, even a lot of things that we went over today, there are blog posts and articles, and sometimes even videos that you could take a look at as well. So.
Awesome, wonderful, and we've got that URL in the description down below. Feel free to click there to get directly to the website. Ian, thank you so much for being on the call today.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.